That was a rough way for the Kings' 6-game winning streak to come to an end as they lose 129 to 93 against the Pelicans. But it was not an unexpected result. On this fourth game of the Kings' road trip, it was the second night of a back-to-back, and this is exactly what the Kings looked like on the second night of back-to-backs last season. I'm pretty sure this even happened against the Pelicans at one point last season. Maybe it wasn't a back-to-back. I know at times the Kings were good on back-to-backs, and then other times they would just chuck a bunch of threes and then lose really badly. Honestly, I've been a proponent of getting rid of back-to-backs, and I think a lot of people agree, but it'll never happen because the owners like money. You'd have to reduce the schedule. But look what happened last night when the Kings played the Mavs, and the Mavs were on the second night of back-to-back. The Kings just outran them. They out-hustled them, and that's why they blew them out. And it was the exact same thing that happened here. So there's just not much you can take away from this game other than the Kings are horrible on the second night of back-to-backs. I would say the only other thing that you can take away from this game is the Kings have absolutely no one who can guard Zion Williamson. And not that we didn't already know that. I just made a video talking about some possible trade targets for the Kings and how they have an obvious hole. Not having a good wing defender slash four that can defend, a bigger player. And we only have Harrison Barnes, and we don't have anyone that can back up Harrison Barnes. So it's like, how do you defend a guy like Zion Williamson? And we saw it on full display here. So to all those people in the comments of that video saying, the Kings are fine, we don't need to make a move. We got Trey Lyles, we got Jalen Slauson. Like, no, there's obviously a hole to fill, and it's just whether you want to kind of fill it in a super cheap way that with a guy that's going to be not as good, or whether you want to go like all in for a better guy. But the Kings just couldn't defend Zion in this game. Like I said, Harrison Barnes got that assignment, and Barnes is far too slow. Nobody is strong enough to guard Zion. And they were just running that curl to get Zion going downhill. And the defense that we've seen from the Kings this season, the great defense, was nowhere to be found in this one. And it just had to do with tired legs. Throughout this whole winning streak and just this whole season, we've seen guys help in the helper, great rotations. And in this game, we didn't even see initial help. It was just Zion coming around the screen and having an open lane to the basket. And that was just how the game went every single time. The Pelicans got to the rim, Zion got to the rim whenever he wanted. Honestly, the start to this game surprised me. Not that the Pelicans came out on fire, they hit their first 9 shots, but the fact that the Kings stayed in the game. When the Pelicans came out on fire, I'm like, yeah, here we go. What I expected, getting blown out on the second night of a back to back on the road. But then the Kings were somehow still in it, and they did it by forcing turnovers and getting on the offensive glass. And Harrison Barnes was knocking down threes. We had some other guys knocking down threes, and we couldn't stop the Pelicans at all. And I was just like, if the defense just gets a little better, then we'll be okay. And it did get a little better at the end of the first quarter, and we were able to actually take a lead going into the second quarter, and we're able to maintain a lead like half of the second quarter, and then it just all fell apart. And that's when the Kings just lost their legs. It was just jacking up shot after shot from three. It's like the Kings weren't allowed to take a 2-point shot. And that is exactly what happened last season when the Kings were on back to backs. They would just fire away endlessly from three. It would be Fox dribbling up, just jacking up a three. He took 12 in this game, hit two, and the offense just did not have the same crispness as it normally did. And then it doesn't help when you have Zion, who can just get downhill whenever he wants. And defending a player like that with the personnel that the Kings have takes everyone to be giving 100% effort and be 100% locked in. And the Kings just weren't in this game. And the good thing about how the schedule is we just get to rest and recover in New Orleans, and then we get another go at them on Wednesday. And so nothing about this game worries me because we just get to see how they will actually play on rest against the Pelicans on Wednesday and how they respond to that. The one worrying thing is the injuries that are kind of racking up. Kevin Huerter was back in this game after only missing one game. Trey Lyles should be coming back very soon, but Sasha Vezenkov was a game time decision. I think he was questionable coming in to this one, and he was out. Chris Duarte went out. He hurt his left hand in this one. And then the really worrying one is Keegan Murray did not come out for the second half. Kessler Edwards started in his place, and it was a lower back issue. Now that is scary. You never want to hear anything with the back. Hopefully it's just the Kings being cautious because they were getting absolutely blown out. And I'm honestly glad that the Kings were getting blown out by this much because it meant that they didn't play the starters in the fourth quarter. There was just absolutely no hope of coming back, and I was actually happy about that. Don't try to, fake us out with a fake comeback and just waste the starters' energy. There's just no point to that in this game. We were never winning this game. Zion had 18 points in the second quarter. And then Brandon Ingram, who I think they said had been shooting 26% from three this season, decided to go 5 for 5 from three in the third quarter and also had 18 points. So when you let two guys have 18 points in two straight quarters, it's not great. The Kings had 16 points combined in the third quarter. They got outscored by Brandon Ingram alone in the third quarter. And Zion in the second quarter scored more than the Kings combined in the third quarter. I think it's just a miracle that we were even ahead in this game in the second quarter. Barnes just wasn't athletic enough to give any type of resistance against Zion. Sabonis wasn't stepping up to help and prevent him from getting downhill. Keegan Murray was not stepping up to prevent him from getting downhill. There were some weird miscommunications with Kevin Huerter on some switches. Davion Mitchell getting switched onto Zion with no help, never going to work. And Zion just went left every single time until he didn't. And he went right, and he still made it. For some reason, the Pelicans, when they were up by 40 points, still had Zion in the game. And that's just playing with fire. I mean, this guy has had so many injuries, and that's the only thing that is stopping him from being one of the best players of all time. Yet you have him in when you're up by 40. That was really odd. But I said coming into this game, I'm like, Zion, he hasn't been as dominant as I expected him to be this season when healthy. And then, of course, he just absolutely dominates us. One thing that was nice to see was when Kessler Edwards came into the game and started the second half, he immediately came in and locked up Brandon Ingram. And he was playing some nice defense. His shot also always looks really good, but he just doesn't make that high of a percentage. It looks really nice, but he's just not there as a shooter. But he is a really skilled defender and can defend a guy like Brandon Ingram really well. He can't defend a guy like Zion really well. He doesn't have the strength for that. But a guy like Brandon Ingram is kind of a perfect matchup for him. I thought Keegan did a solid job on Brandon Ingram as well. And then Ingram started going off once Keegan, wasn't in the game anymore. The funny thing is, Sabonis still almost put up a triple-double. He had 10-10 and 8 assists, which is really surprising because, I guess it's just because nobody was driving to the basket, so they were just all shooting off of his passes. So even if you're shooting a bad percentage, you're going to get a lot of assists because, I understood why they were doing it because they were just tired, but it's infuriating to just watch a team jack up threes when coming into the game, I knew that if we were going to win this game, we couldn't do that. And that's just what we did. Just jacked up a bunch of threes and didn't get to the paint. Got outscored by about a billion points in the paint. Just an approximation there. The actual number is 64-40. But again, you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt. It was probably even worse than that because the Kings, this game had a full 12 minutes of garbage time. The injuries that are piling up for our depth are concerning, but we are a pretty deep team. Like it's just next man up. And I think most of the injuries are just little things. The Alex Len injury is, a longer term thing. And I'm worried about the Keegan Murray thing being a longer term thing. But everything else is just, Trey Lyles should be coming back soon. Herter's already back. Keon Ellis, it didn't seem like his ankle sprain was too severe. Duarte, at one point they said he could come back into this game, and then he didn't. Maybe just because they were getting crushed. I don't know. It's just like a hand thing, that it doesn't seem like it would be that serious. And so that's the good thing about the injuries. JaVale McGee in this one, coming in for Alex Len these past few games. He's a wild player. It wasn't great. I feel like they try to get the ball to him too much, like on offense, to be the hub like Sabonis is, and that's just not what he's good at. But he thinks he's better than he is, and that's kind of a problem. You always see him trying to post up or feed slick passes in, hit a nice jump hook, and when it works, it's amazing. But it just doesn't work at that high of a rate to justify going to it as much as he does. Davion came into this game, played garbage time, also played some other minutes. Didn't do too much in terms of scoring the ball, but had 8 assists, which was solid. But he's just not showing me anything new. And so, he had 8 assists. That's great playmaking, but I'm honestly just not that high on him anymore. Just because I think we've seen what the peak of his defense is, and it's not good enough to justify how bad he is and how little he contributes offensively. He's not Jose Alvarado. The problem with him defensively, like yes, he can come in one possession, absolutely lock up Kyrie Irving. And he did that last night, and that was awesome. But then there are other times when guys just shoot over him, get mismatches, and so it looks great on the possessions he does get a stop because it looks like he's playing incredible defense, but there are too many possessions where I'm like, wow, he played the best defense he could there. And they still scored because he's just too small. So yeah, I would say I'm out on Davion at this point. And I would much rather see what, Keon Ellis continues to bring as a bigger, longer guy who I think, has a better 3-point shot, and what a guy like Colby Jones is going to bring. And Colby in garbage time hit some nice floaters. That's just always what I see from him. His floater is so good, and his finishing around the rim in general is pretty good. I think the sooner we move away from Davion and give all the minutes to other guys, the sooner the better at this point, in my opinion. I know everyone loves Davion because, and I do too, he gives it his all defensively. We know that he is a gym rat and he's working on his shot. And that's great, but like at the end of the day, you need results at some point. And we're 3 seasons in, and we're just not seeing any improvement. I was hopeful coming into this season about his 3-point shot, and it just hasn't happened. I mean, I say it every time. Hopefully, he can prove me wrong. I don't think he will. It's kind of unfortunate that at the end of this road trip, like the last game of our long road trip, is the biggest in-season tournament game against the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have been playing amazing. And then we come home, and our first home game is against the Warriors in the in-season tournament. I just think that's kind of unfortunate because the in-season tournament it's exciting, and I want us to advance through our group, and we kind of that scheduling is not great because teams tend to do poorly, especially on their first home game from a long road trip. I think on the last road game, it can be better. And so hopefully we do see that. But, I'm just looking for a bounce back game against the Pelicans because, I mean, the defense cannot be as bad as it was in this one. And we know the Kings are going to get into the paint more. We saw what the Kings could do to be successful against the Pelicans. And that was getting on the glass, offensive rebounding. They scored a lot off of turnovers. The Pelicans don't have great rim protection. Valanciunas did a solid job in this game, I thought, but we can still go at him. And then defensively, it just has to be more of a team effort to get in front of Zion and to force him to give up the ball and not be able to just go straight to his left hand and lay it up every single possession. And I do have a lot of faith that it will be much better on Wednesday. It would be kind of funny though if the Kings on Wednesday just lose and get blown out again because, obviously that would not be fun, but it would be funny because the Kings have only lost to now 3 teams this season. It was the Warriors twice, it was then the Rockets twice, and then it could be the Pelicans twice. So it would just be kind of funny if we kept losing in twos to teams. I think a lot of this, like I said, it was the back-to-back. But the Pelicans do have length, and the Pelicans blew the Kings out last season as well. That it definitely bothers the Kings. And so it's just like it's hard to know how much is the Pelicans. I mean, the Pelicans hit every shot. Like everything that could go wrong went wrong in this game. Pelicans were hitting every shot, getting right to the rim. Kings were just horrible on both ends and, on offense after the first quarter and a half. It is definitely something to watch, though, in this next game against the Pelicans. If that game we also struggle, then it's definitely something to discuss about the Kings struggling against length. But I've just seen it enough times of the Kings on the second night of back-to-backs where they just start jacking up a million threes. And if they go in, that's great. It happened sometimes last season. The Kings definitely won their fair share of back-to-backs last season just by making every shot. But it's obviously not a sustainable way to win. I do remember there was definitely a stretch of last season where the Kings were better with less rest than the other team, and that was something that we were kind of watching. Maybe this season that has gone away because the Kings are actually trying to up the defensive intensity and are playing better defense and are playing more physical defense. And so it's not just run and gun, and they're actually wearing themselves out because they're trying to play on both ends of the court. Let's hope that is it. And I just want to see them give a team effort defensively to stop Zion from getting to the rim every single time. Anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. I will be back on Wednesday after the next game against the Pelicans. Hopefully we see a bounce back performance, and so I will be back then to recap that game. Peace.